talking about a really awesome topic. And the topic is marketing. We're talking about marketing your business. Oh, I like the clap. I like the applause from Aaron. Awesome. Aaron, when you think about marketing, what comes to your mind? When I say marketing, what pops into your mind?
Sharing what you do with others.
I love it. What a great definition. Marketing is simply sharing what you do with others. I'd like to hear from some other people. What do you think of when I say marketing? When I say marketing, what are the thoughts that pop in your head? Walter.
As somebody who is 99% positive, I'll say that I see a money pit with money that goes into the abyss with very little return on the money. That's the only time I will ever be negative, but that's how I feel about marketing.
That's how you feel about marketing. So it's the Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit. Great.
Yes.
I'm glad that you're sharing those things, that you're being open with it. And I think that there's actually a real reason behind that, it being a money pit. And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today. In fact, everyone, I like coming up with interesting titles that are going to help us remember things. So there's five key ways to market your message organically. Five key ways to market your message organically. When I say organically, I mean without spending money on advertising, like Walter's talking about. So five key ways to go and do that. But I wanted everyone to remember this. So what I'm calling it is the high five of organic marketing. So everyone give me a high five at the same time. It's the high five of organic marketing. I love it. We want to be able to remember these things. But the reason why sometimes marketing becomes that money pit, like Walter's talking about, is we are doing the right things in the wrong order. Let me say that again. The problem is we're doing the right things, but in the wrong order. So spending money on advertising is putting fuel on a fire that's already working. Unless you have money to burn, we should not be spending money on advertising until we already have proof of concept with this type of marketing message. So here's when it's a great time to start spending money on advertising. It's a great time to spend money on advertising when you know through your organic efforts that when I put this message in front of these people, it leads to new people, as in it leads to leads. I have actual leads in my business, and my marketing process or my sales process that comes afterwards now leads to money. Because what I know in that situation is I know all I need to do is to get more people at the beginning of that process. So I can put money into it, knowing that it's going to get more people in. Then from there, I get more people into my system. Then with all the different marketing follow-up, sales follow-up things that we have going, that turns into money. And I know that because I already proved the process. So if we've already proved the process, now we can move forward with it. And when I say, unless you have money to burn, it's really not the place to go, because that beginning portion of it, we are not dealing with widgets. We are dealing with people. We're dealing with humans. So unfortunately, even if you follow anybody's marketing messaging advice to a T, there is still going to be trial and error involved. It's not resonating with the people, so I need to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. So at those beginning steps, when you're going after it, you're starting, if you're pouring money into it, what you're doing is you're putting money in, knowing that you need to tweak, knowing that you need to tweak. So unless you're in a position where you can burn the money, I wouldn't do it with the paid ads. We want to do that with the organic ads so that we can learn with our efforts. And once it is ready to go, that's when we put the money into ads. The second reason we want to wait to put money into the ads before we want to wait until we already have a proven process, is because if it is not working, we don't know what's not working. Is it the advertising? Is it the functionality of the ad system, whether it's Facebook or Google or TikTok or whatever it is? Is it the functionality of that? Or is it the messaging that's not working? Is it not being delivered in the way that it's supposed to? Is there something broken on the landing page? Is there something we have no idea because there's too many variables? Anyone ever take a science class where you talk about the scientific method? Everyone's done that before, right? So when we talk about the scientific method and we're trying to prove something or disprove something, we have to isolate the experiment. If we have too many variables going on, we have no idea what is the actual thing that we're looking at. So we have to isolate the experiment. So when we go to paid advertising, that's when it's leveraging. That's when it's leveraging what we're doing and we're really pouring fuel on the fire. So we do things in the wrong order. So what we want to do is use this high five of organic marketing to get in front of people. I like it. Paul, there you go. Virtual high five. Boom. There you go. It's funny. Yesterday, where's Stephanie? Is Stephanie here? No, Stephanie's off screen. Yesterday, we were talking to someone and Stephanie did this like karate chop. And then the funny thing was, and I don't really remember the reason why. I think she was just getting really animated and she's like, okay, so what you're going to do is you're really just going to chop it out of the, she was getting all animated. And then somehow all the way across the country, this person was from New York. There was a loud noise of something falling in her room at that exact moment. So I believe that energetically, Stephanie passed her karate chop across the country. That's what I think happened. No, I'm just kidding. Someone came into the room and knocked something over, but it was very funny though. It was a really good thing. Okay, so looking at this, marketing. Aaron says marketing is sharing my message with people, telling people about what I do. Walter says marketing is a money pit. What else
Well,
do people say?
that was a tease, right?
I understand that. I understand that, but it brings an important message to us. It brings
Yes, it
something,
does.
an important point, because that's where we go sometimes. Let's hear some other people. When I say what is marketing, what comes to your mind? Marketing is what? This is where we get a hand raised, and then and that's where we have that. It's all right. Let's go to Ryan and then Kimberly.
Helping more of the right people know that you exist.
Okay, helping more of the right people know that you exist. That's a really great way to do it. Erica says marketing feels complicated. Okay, great. I get that. Jennifer says it feels stressful. Rob says putting your name or your brand at the top of people's mind on a consistent basis. Great, I love it. Marketing is trading money for opportunity. Definitely, that's certainly a definition there. Content can be marketing. Marketing is serving others. Kimberly, what comes to your mind?
Well, connection. I think, in general, those of you who know me, I love meeting new people. And this is just in a business context where it's an exchange of life minutes and everything, but it's actually, if you keep it authentic, it's super fun.
Yes, I love that. I think marketing can be really fun. Marketing can be a lot of fun. Here's the definition that I like to use when we talk about marketing. Marketing is sharing your mission with the world. That's what marketing is. Marketing is sharing your mission with the world. And I know some people said it's complicated, it's stressful, it's all those things. If we break it down just to this one line, marketing is sharing your message with the world. All those little details about how you do it, those are just the details that come afterwards. But if we just talk about, you know what I get to do? I get to share my message with the world. Pop in the comments how that feels as opposed to I got to go do marketing. How does that feel? Pop into the comments there. I get to share my message with the world. I think that's why we all got into this. Share our message with the world. Aaron loves it. EJ says, great, fantastic. I love it. That's a much better way to feel about it. Fantastic. I love that. It means I am helping the people who need to find me. Absolutely. It feels fantastic. Feels comforting and comfortable. Love that reframe. I got to do marketing. There you go, Paul. Feels like coming from a place of contribution. So you think about it this way, marketing is a place of contribution if we look at it in that actual way. If we're saying, okay, how can I share my message with the world? How can I share my mission with the world? That's a very different way to look at things, and it's something that we can do. Now, we're going to talk about this high five of organic marketing. These are 5 ways that we can go about doing it, but all of these things will feel stressful, overwhelming, and like a waste of time if we come into it as it's a necessary evil. I hear a lot of people saying that. Well, I love helping people, but the marketing stuff, it's just a necessary evil. That person will literally never find success in their business. I'll tell you this, The number one most important thing that you can get, number one most important skill that you can get when it comes to marketing and sales is learn to love marketing and sales. And if you have to brainwash yourself, do it. If you have to find a way to love it, and to love it, because you think about this, all marketing is sharing your mission with the world. All sales is helping people make a commitment to their goals, to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it happen. That's all sales is. That's all it is. We have to learn to love it, because if we don't love sharing our mission with the world, it will take willpower, and willpower eventually dries out. Willpower always eventually dries out because we get tired, we get overwhelmed, and we go, look, I can do the push for some amount of time. But I'll tell you, there's an old proverb that says, the person who loves to walk will always walk further than the person who loves the destination. The person who loves to walk will always walk further than the person who loves the destination. So we got to learn to love to walk. And I'm not saying that you got to go be like a marketing nerd and be like super into like, oh, we do this like marketing thing and it's so awesome. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, think about it this way. I love sharing my message with the world. I love sharing my message with the world. And these are just tools to share my message with the world. So anytime you get stuck in the weeds of all the, what do I do? No. I love sharing my message with the world. And now these are tools to help me share the message with the world. Everyone type into the comments, I love sharing my message. All right, I love sharing my message. I love sharing my message. Fantastic. I literally want every single person to type that in. And I'd love 1 or 2 volunteers, and then we'll get into this high five. 1 or 2 volunteers just to share, why do you love sharing your message? Why do you love sharing your message? Jennifer, let's hear from you. And then 1 more volunteer. Who's my second volunteer? Then we'll go to Earl and then Rob. Jennifer, why do you love sharing your message?
Well, as you were just talking, it made me realize that I really don't know that I think marketing is stressful anymore. I think that's always been my go-to thought. And the reason is because you guys all, especially Miss Kimberly, inspired me to start doing the 90-second reels. And I've started doing those, and I'm not specifically putting call to actions in them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I've gotten a little bit of feedback on that. But what I'm finding is that when people want to comment on something, whether there's a call to action or not, they're going to comment on it. And I'm getting more engagement, more people finding me, more people seeing it. I have 2 women on TikTok in the last less than 30 days that are commenting on almost every single reel and reaching out and having conversations with me. And so yes, I do love sharing my message, and I don't think of my message as marketing. So thank you. This is all I needed today. I'm done. Out. No,
I love it. Fantastic. Earl, let's hear from you. Why do you love sharing your message?
I love sharing my message because I'm passionate about helping other people overcome life's storms and thrive instead of survive. But I'm really passionate about helping others.
Love it. Fantastic. And then Rob, why do you love sharing your message?
I think for the most part, like I started out heavy with the imposter syndrome. Like I'm bothering people. Then when I switched that frame of mind to coming from a place of contribution, I'm like, I'm sharing it, I'm impacting. It's an opportunity to give and to give and to give. And at some point, I might give to you, Jake, but you might not give back to me. But maybe Jennifer gives back to me. And so you just give with the idea of not getting back directly, but you're just putting it out there in the universe, just knowing and believing that it's coming back to you. I like to say, you put it out there in slices and it comes back in loaves.
Yes. I love what you shared right there. And that brings us perfectly into this topic. Now I'm going to feature or spotlight my video for everyone so you can see what I'm doing on the board. Give me a thumbs up if I just got large so everyone could see that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so what Rob just talked about the willingness to give. I'm going to tell you this is the second thing. The first thing is everyone remember that marketing is sharing your message with the world. And if you don't love that, you're going to really struggle with it. The rest is just details. You might not like the details. That's fine. You don't have to love the details. but you got to focus on, I love sharing my message. And just like for me, I don't love plane flights. I don't love plane flights, but I love traveling. I love traveling. I love where I'm going. I love what I'm doing. And to me, the getting in the airplane is just the one part of it. That's just part of the details. I don't love that part of it because even when I'm in the best of physical condition, my shoulders are wider than the seat. My shoulders are broad. My shoulders are wider than the seat. And it just doesn't feel great when I know that the person next to me is like, man, I got this guy next to me. Come on. Why is this guy next to me? Anyway, and I just don't love it. But at the same time, I love traveling and I love going places. So I'm excited about getting on an airplane. I just don't love those details of it. What I'm saying is if all I was doing was getting in a big metal tube and sitting there uncomfortable for 3 hours for no reason, I wouldn't want to do it. But I do love traveling and it doesn't bother me because I love what I'm doing. So you don't have to love the details. You don't have to love the details. But what you do need to love is love what you are actually doing. And that is sharing our message. The second thing, when it comes to marketing, we need to give without expectation. If you give with expectation, it won't work. It just won't. One, people can see through it. Two, energetically, there's this feeling of a wall that you're putting up, and you're never fully giving to the level that people want to actually engage with you. If you are marketing, if you are sharing your message, if you're doing these things, and then you start going, man, screw them. I'm putting out all this stuff and no one's coming back to me. Well, you're blaming the people when really this is a you problem. My longtime friend and client, Jarrett, said recently, the older I get, the more I realize all my problems are a me problem. He was kind of frustrated by it, but kind of joking at the same time. But what I'm saying is if it's not working, something needs to change with the messaging, something needs to change with the approach, or maybe nothing needs to change with the approach or the messaging. And what really needs to change is my energy towards the subject. What really needs to change there, because I know that when you give without expectation and what you're giving is what people actually want, people will come to you. So when we talk about these 5 things that I'm talking about here, if we give with expectation, it's not going to work. If we're treating it as a necessary evil, I hate doing this, but I have to, it's not going to work. We have to look at it as every day, what an opportunity I have to be able to share my message with the world, to let people know I exist is what it comes down to. Letting people know I exist, because without awareness, people can't know what you're doing. Now, the last part before we get into these details of these 5 things, the last part is when we are marketing, we focus on marketing. When we are selling, we focus on selling. These 2 things are not the same thing. We think of them as the same thing, but maybe nobody's watching your videos because just like Jennifer said, maybe every single video has a call to action. And they're like, why am I watching a commercial? I'm here for entertainment. What if every single 3 minutes of your favorite television show, they stopped and said, by the way, buy this product. This show, why am I watching this show? So it doesn't mean that you don't ask. If you're looking for a range of this, Gary Vaynerchuk's Jab, 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 Right Hook is a really great book. The idea is like he uses a boxing analogy. And he's saying, in boxing, you're doing a jab, and then you're going for the right hook. It's not always 3-1, but the idea is like the jab is the setup, and then there's the right hook. Well, he's just a guy who likes boxing, and so that's why I use that analogy. But the idea was give, ask. Give, ask. It doesn't mean it's necessarily that ratio, but you're giving far more than you're asking. And by the way, if you're giving in a piece of content and asking, that's not a give post, that's an asking post. And that's how people see it, because they see it as transactional. So you have to look at this as when you're marketing, you're marketing. When you are selling, you're selling. And if you're trying to market and sell at the same time, the marketing is not going to work very well, because people are going to go, well, why am I watching this? Why am I participating in this? So we want to get awareness that we exist. We want to get awareness is the first phase of marketing. Then from there, we want them to see us as credible. Then from there is interest. Awareness, credibility, interest. And after interest is where sales actually starts. But before that, it's marketing. Awareness, credibility, interest. So with that spiel, we're going to get into our high five of organic marketing. Everyone give me a air high five. 1, 2, 3. Boom. There we go. High five. And here's these 5 things. I'm going to go through these quickly. These are 5 ways. And I think that pretty much every form of organic marketing falls into one of these 5 categories. There might be something random that you can come up with that doesn't, and that's fine. But these are 5 things that we can consistently do. And there's a lot of things within them. So 5 different ways that we can organically market, meaning we're not using paid advertising to do these things. So number 1 is just good old-fashioned reaching out to people. So there's nothing wrong with reaching out to people if we're doing it in a way where we have integrity with it. Also, it's a great way to reach out to people, just to connect with people, to build your network. Reaching out to individuals. By the way, all of these things, I'm not telling you that you have to do these things or any of them. You're going to focus on, by the end of today, I want you to have one of these that you want to focus on over the next month. You're still going to do all the other ones. I just want you to choose, or you'll do some, you won't, whatever. Whatever you're doing right now is great, but I want you to intentionally focus on one of these categories. So the first way to organically market your business, to share your message with the world, is just simply reaching out to people. And we can do this reaching out to them to invite them to an event. We can reach out to people to start a connection, to have a connection call, or to say, I want to build my network with people like you. We're reaching out to people so they know that we exist. And that's a great way to grow your network if you don't have the right people in your network. Because ultimately, most people's content isn't working, not because the content's not good, but because they don't have enough people in their network that fit the criteria of the people that they actually want to work with. So this is a really great way to do that. Reaching out to people, and it's something everyone can do. It's probably the most simple form, and it's the thing people think about the first, but it doesn't stop there. So reaching out is number 1. Number 2 is networking. It's going to places where your ideal clients are, whether that's virtual or in person, and going there to meet people. Here's a really cool thing. When you reach out to someone that you don't know, when it's not a networking event, there's always this wall of, who are you? When you show up somewhere, whether it's an in-person networking event or an online networking event, it's kind of one of those things where they've given you their permission to talk to them because they showed up for this reason. They want to connect with people. So it's like we're going into a pool where everyone in that pool actually wants to be talking to people just like you. So that's a really great opportunity. And it's somewhere where we're going after the willing, not after the people. We don't know if these people are willing. We don't know if they are. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. So networking is a really effective way to go out there and find the people that you want to connect with, especially if you know the kind of events that your ideal clients are participating in, whether it's online or in person. Networking, and going back to what Rob was saying earlier about giving without that expectation. When you go to a networking event, if you turn it, and by the way, Paul's going to do a really great presentation on networking at our live event in Long Beach. When you go to a networking event, if you're the guy who's walking around with your business card saying, hey, if you want this, contact me. If you want this, contact me. I mean, I'm just like, why'd you give me something for me to throw away for you? Because that's how I feel about that business card. Like, you just gave me something for me to throw away in the trash because I have no interest in talking to you further, because I call them the business card ninjas, because they're treating their business cards as like ninja stars, and they're like, you get a card, you get a card, you get a card. They're just kind of like tossing them out like ninja stars. And it's like, why'd you give me this? I don't even know who you are. I have no connection to you. I have no interest. So you want to actually connect with people, have real conversations, connect with people and build real relationships, and then follow up with them afterwards to have that kind of business conversation to see what's really there. Now, I'm not saying you can't get into business, but focus more on what matters to them. And I promise you, you're going to get so much more in return. If you want I believe, the best book ever for when it comes to networking. Go read the book. If you haven't read it in a long time, read it again. The book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Just such an incredible book. And it's not just on networking, but what a great piece of content that is for networking. The next one, I call this magnetic marketing. Magnetic marketing is anything that we are doing to attract people. So here's some examples of magnetic marketing. So if you're creating something for the purpose of bringing people to you, here's what magnetic marketing looks like. Kimberly and Jennifer were talking about it earlier. So like putting out reels right now. If there's something that is organically bringing people to you, that is a organic form of magnetic marketing. If you are hosting a podcast and you're hosting that podcast and you're interviewing certain types of people, you're putting it out into the world with the hope that the right people come to you, that's organic marketing. I'm bringing people to you. If you're starting some kind of community like a Facebook group or some other platform, you're creating something that your ideal client wants to be a part of. So now they're coming to you. This is magnetic marketing. They're coming to you. Here's an example. I've shared this on here before, but there's a lot of different people who probably weren't here then. One of the first marketing books I ever read was a marketing book on music marketing. It was about marketing music because that's what I was in at the time. That kind of started this whole marketing world for me and got excited about it. But he talked about this idea. That what we are doing in marketing, the best thing that we can do to market something that matters to us is to build something that the people that would like what we do are already looking for. So like for his example, people weren't looking for his music, but they were looking for music like him. So if he just marketed him, nobody knew who he was, so nobody cared. He was a modern classical type piano player. So it was like, as in modern compositions, but classical type piano. And so what he did was he went, well, people who listen to this type of music are looking for this type of music. So this was early days of the internet. Spotify didn't exist. Pandora didn't exist. So he created a website that was called it was early on the internet. I think it was called classicalpianoradio.com, something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was something that you probably couldn't buy today because someone would have bought it for the purpose of selling it to other people. But he bought this URL, put this out there, and started marketing that, and people started coming. People started coming and talking about, dude, you got to come over here. There's this classical piano radio, and you can hear all these great new artists. And people started coming to it. Well, by the way, it just so happened that his music came on every like seventh song was one of his songs. So he was building a fan base by doing that. So looking at what are people actually looking for, that's magnetic marketing. If I'm creating Facebook groups, if I'm creating LinkedIn groups or whatever type of platform, if I'm creating my own networking events, for you, it might be a great way to say, you know what? No one's coming to what I'm doing because they don't know that I exist yet. So what are they looking for? If you're in a market, if you're in any kind of business coaching, your ideal client is probably looking to network with other people. So you could go, well, what if I created my own networking event? What if I created my own networking event and started going from there? Lewis Howes is a great example of this. When Lewis Howes, who runs the podcast, The School of Greatness, really big in our industry today, but when he first started in the business world, it was after his football career was over because he shattered his wrist and he went, well, I'm not going to make it to the NFL. That's what he was hoping to do. And after shattering his wrist on the first game of his senior year, he went, it's not happening. It's not happening because he had an injury the year before. Now all of a sudden he's labeled as injury prone. It's just not happening. So he's looking for things to do. LinkedIn was brand new at the time, and nobody on earth had more time than him to learn this new platform of LinkedIn. So he starts reaching out to people, starts building things, and he has this idea of, what if I created some kind of business around people finding jobs. People finding jobs, and he loved sports, had connections in sports. So he thought, what about if I focused on the sports world, like people having jobs in sports, not athletes, getting a job in the sports world. And so what he started doing was his whole business started with creating networking events where it was for people who want to find jobs in the sports world. So all the attendees had to pay to come, but he invited all these people who were professionals in the sports world just so they could connect, and he used LinkedIn to market that. But people started coming to him because nobody knew who Lewis Howes was. Nobody cared who Lewis Howes was. But they did care. I want a job in the sports world, so I want to come to this networking event. So that could be, come to that's a magnetic thing. That's a magnetic way of marketing, but I'm using that. So if you're creating an event, you're creating a group, you're creating content, anything that is designed to bring your ideal client to you is magnetic marketing. That's the third form of the high five of organic marketing. The fourth form is referrals. So we can get referrals from clients. We can get referrals from friends. We can get referrals from family members. We can get referrals from people who said no to us. Sometimes you get a no and then you're like, man, I just got to get out of here as quickly as possible because this is awkward. But, maybe that person knows someone. You can get referrals from them. You can get referrals from all sorts of places. And by the way, if you make it easy to get referrals, it becomes easier to get them. So what I mean by that is, instead of just saying, refer me somebody who wants to work with me, if you say, well, hey, I'm putting on this event, who do you know that would be a great person to come to this free event? Because then it gives them an easier way to market something, instead of being the kind of person who's like, just give me an ideal client. Give me an ideal client. Really hard to go about doing that. So referrals is a great way to go and do this as well. And then the fifth way, which honestly is one of my very favorite ways, is something we call leverage. And leverage is anything where you do one, let's call it one unit of activity, and it gives you many units of results. So an example of leverage would be speaking at an event that is filled with your ideal clients. That is a leverage marketing activity. Another example is going on a podcast, not your podcast, being interviewed on someone else's podcast, and being interviewed there. What you're looking for is being in front of many of your ideal clients. Another example of leverage is, let's say you use some of these together. Let's say you create a magnetic marketing plan, and a part of that magnetic marketing plan is you are putting on your own events. Let's say like Erin is putting on that speaker series. That's a magnetic marketing type event. But what she could do is she could reach out to someone else who has speaking events, and she can now say, let's swap, so she can get on that stage while that person gets on her stage. And when she goes and speaks on that stage, she is now getting a leverage opportunity. Or if you have a Facebook group or a following online, and you say, can I share your stuff and you share my stuff? If someone is sharing what you do, that is a leverage type opportunity. So we're looking for leverage, and not just one unit of activity gives one unit of results. Now, as you can see here, probably all of these things are connected. All of these things are connected in one way, shape, or form. For example, if you wanted to create some kind of magnetic marketing effort like a podcast, and you wanted to get people to come and listen, and you thought, you know what, I really want to I really want to get whatever type of demographic, whatever kind of people, I really want to get real estate agents to come and listen to my podcast, and I know of someone who's big in that market. If I know of someone who's big in that market, but I don't know them, and I don't know anyone who does know them, like a referral, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to have you come on this. It's still reaching out. Sometimes people think reach out's only for people they don't know that they want to do business with. We're reaching out to people that we don't know all the time to do one of these different things. So these are 5 ways for us to organically market our business, the high 5 of organic marketing. What I want to do now is I want you I want you to choose one that you want to focus on over the next month. And I want you to do some new things over this next month by choosing one of these. So I'm going to remove spotlight here. And I would love for you to decide one of these that you want to focus on. What is one that you want to focus on? If you're clear on which one you want to focus on over the next month to add to what you're doing, type whichever one that is into the comments. And if you're unclear on which one, type the word not sure or the words not sure or unclear into the comments. Rob, let's go to you.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for taking the question here. So I was, as you're doing this, I'm like, yeah, they're all tied to each other. And you know, my real estate business, I work by referral. So I really, I do that at a high level in my business, my real estate business. So what I'm thinking here as I'm watching this, like I'm looking at the reach out piece and I'm looking at the leverage piece and how closely I think they're connected in my mind. It's like, so for instance, I just kicked off this, I just sent out invitations today that I'm launching this event on October the 11th. So I'm reaching out, right? I'm reaching out to this database of people, but I'm also using those people as leverage to get other people to come. You with me?
Yep.
And then in addition to that, I did a presentation last week for an insurance company, and that guy liked what he heard. So I'm going to use him as leverage to try to get people to come out to that event as well. So to answer your question here, I think I'm going to do 1 and 5 at the same time, if that makes sense. Is that
Makes perfect sense. And what's interesting is I would say that what it sounds like is the leverage is really the main focus here, but you're using reach out to get to the people to be able to leverage is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
And I'm reaching out to the people I work in my business by referral with.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Thank you.
So well, and also here's this other thing. When it comes to reaching out, and I didn't mention this when we were talking earlier, and I should have. Reaching out could be reaching out to people you don't know, but it could also be reaching out to people that you do know. So it could be one or the other. So you're reaching out to people, is people you don't know, or is it people that you do know? And by the way, if you're not reaching out to people that you've been referred to because they didn't respond the first time you reached out to them, not only do you miss out on that opportunity, but you also lose face with the person who gave you the referral because you didn't follow up with them. You didn't reach out to them. So the reach out is both reaching out to people you already know and reaching out to people that you don't know is another part of it as well. Let's go to Walter's comment.
So I don't know if you did it on purpose, but magnetic in the middle, for me, it is really starting with that. It incorporates all the other 4. So my goal for this year is really, it was twofold, right? One is to roll out an e-learning program, which is starting next week, and then also the speaking engagements. So now I'm offering a series of freebies online, not to sell, but just for magnetic purposes that people are drawn to. I can do that through outreach of people I don't know, people who I know, in networking events. So I'm doing a presentation at ACHC New Jersey on September 26th. It's a non-paid gig, but hundreds of people will be attending to it who are right in my target population. And hopefully through that, people can see both my speaking engagement, can attract speaking jobs, as well as hopefully to the learning program or the emerging leader program. So I think it's incorporating all those things. It's the consistency that is to try to bring that value and quality in the 60-second clips and the video clips and all these things more. So I'm really focusing on the magnetic piece of providing a service at no cost without any obligations that will help me, organically and inorganically, through outreach and no paid advertisement at all. I cut that out completely initially in order to make these meaningful connections that I believe will translate into real business.
Love it. Walter, that's awesome. And Walter, I'll say this. You said, I don't know if you put magnetic in the middle for a reason. Since I thought that sounded really smart, I'm going to say yes. That's exactly why I did it. I was precisely thinking about it in that way.
And I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, this all sounds great. Okay, here's what I'm hearing from everyone. Let's see. Erica says 2 and 3, so networking and magnetic. Fantastic. EJ says reach out. We're calling schools. Fantastic. Paul's reaching out. Earl doing magnetic. Greg says not sure. Now, Greg, if you were sure, if you had to take a guess, what would that be? I would look at that and say, well, you know what, if I had to choose one right now, what would I choose right now? And I might even look at what's worked in the past. Now, Greg, something I know that's worked really well for you in the past is reaching out to people to be able to do a magnetic event. So you're reaching out and doing a magnetic event because you were doing your webinars, you were doing those kind of virtual online events, and those all turned into really great opportunities for you. So if I were you, I would think about doing that again, starting to do those online events, and then using reach out, using referrals, using networking, leveraging all to get people to come to those things. And by the way, as Walter was saying, I do actually think that is the most important thing, is creating some kind of magnetic marketing, whether it's a community, whether it's a event, whether it's a networking event, something like that, something that people feel like they got to go to, an online or in-person event. That's an entry-level online or in-person event, some kind of community or some kind of networking event, something around those things. If you put that as the center of your marketing and use reaching out, use networking, use referrals, use leverage to get people to come to this, or if that's a podcast, or if that's a YouTube channel, something to hang your hat on, to where when you go out to people and you meet people, whether it's networking or reaching out, or it's referrals, or you're speaking, if you come to these places, let's say you go to a networking event and you're immediately going to, this is what I do with my clients, there's a little bit of a awkward, like, I'm not really sure about that yet. I'm not really sure about that yet. But you say, hey, awesome to meet you. Here's what I love. Do you listen to podcasts? Okay, great. I have this podcast where I bring on different experts every single week on such and such topics. So come and check it out. And by the way, I'd love to have your business card. I'll follow up with you in a week, give you some time to listen to some of them, and then we'll touch base. Well, that's a much easier connection than it is, hey, you know what? I think you should be a client of mine. Much easier connection. Or the same thing, if you're putting on, let's say, a virtual training, a free event, a webinar of some sort. You say, hey, yeah, okay, you got this particular challenge? Awesome. I'd love to have you come to this free training I'm doing next week. Yeah, just come check it out. It's a lot easier to say, come to the party, rather than, I think you should do business with me. It's just a bigger jump. It's a bigger jump. So you make it easy on yourself, which I think is a really, really good place to be. So most people have something here. Most people have something here that they're looking at and working on. What I want to do now is I want everyone to, first of all, are there any questions to address on this topic? Any questions to address on this topic before we move on to the next part of it? Yeah, EJ. Yeah, you're good. I'd love to hear it. You're just not, or you can type it into the comments. Let's see. I'm going to click ask to unmute.
My question is, should the phone call follow up behind the email? Should I send the email first and follow up with the phone call? And how long should I wait to follow up with the phone call?
Great question. So EJ is talking about specifically with him reaching out to schools because he's speaking in the high school market. But this applies to everyone. If you're doing reach out, by the way, and in that market, that's such a great one to use reach out of even people you don't know, because you know exactly who the right people are. Hard thing with reach out is if you're basically just going from a virtual phone book, you have no idea if there's any interest, it's hard to make that worth your time. In the school market, it's really worth your time because every one of these people are actually qualified potential clients, because they could have a budget. Even if they say they don't have a budget, they could move money around and make that be something. So it's a really good thing to do. But if we're reaching out to people, if you're doing reach out as one of these ways to organically market your business, and this is for everyone, not just EJ, I'm trying to make this relevant to everyone. If your plan is to reach out to people one time and never again, I'm going to tell you right now, just don't do it. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. I would rather you reach out to the same 100 people 3 times than reach out to 1,000 people 1 time. I'll say that again. I'd rather you reach out to the same 100 people 3 times over the course of 3 weeks than for you to reach out to 1,000 people 1 time. Even though 1,000's more people, it's not effective when you're not doing it with consistency. So EJ, you say, should it be a call? Should it be an email? In all honesty, doesn't matter the order. What does matter is that you're doing, I would say, an email, a follow-up email, and a phone call. That you're doing all 3 of those. I would probably space out the emails 1 week apart. As far as the phone call, I would just put it in a place where it's not the immediate next day, but it's also, it doesn't need to be a week later. Or you could do a phone call. A lot of them are just going to patch you directly through to a voicemail for like the principal. So you call the school. So for you, if you call the school, hey, I was just curious, do you know who would be in charge of booking speakers for assembly programs? And they're going to say, well, it's probably our principal. Okay, great. What's the best way to be in touch with your principal? Well, I can patch you through to their phone or their voicemail. Okay, great. Before that, what's their best email? And they'll tell you the best email. You go, great. Then from there, you get patched over the voicemail. And then with your awesome, epic voice, doesn't EJ have an incredible voice? With your awesome voice, hey, this is EJ. I would love to talk to you about coming to your school to talk about student engagement and what an important thing that is. I'm also going to send you an email with some more information, but let's touch base soon if you're interested in that. Then I would send the email immediately. So you got a phone call and an email, and they heard your voice, and they now got an email. Then you follow up with them an email a week later. You got 3 touch points in about 2 weeks. But at the same time, you can only make so many phone calls in a day. You can only make so many emails in a day. What I would say is stagger things so that you're focusing on your energy. What matters more is the consistency of reach outs than having the sequence be perfect. So just, focus on it. If you're like, man, I am tired of making phone calls today, then I would say, great, send emails. And then if you're tired of sending emails, then I go, great, I'm going to make phone calls.
Is there a number, a range you usually try to get to? 10, 5, 7, 15 calls per day and emails on average. Somebody told me I need to send out a minimum of 100 emails a week, and I don't know how many calls, or maybe you can clarify that for me or give me some suggestion.
So numbers are challenging because the truth is the more the better is what the truth is there. But the other thing is the more specific you can be on the follow-up, the better as well. I think a great number to start with would be if you could do 20 phone calls a day and 20 emails a day, that's going to get you moving. And I would put that as like a minimum in your market, and make sure that with that, you're really following up with people. You're really connecting with people. You're doing your homework with those people. That would be my suggestion for starting. But if you did that consistently, that ends up being 100 phone calls, 100 emails. And the truth is, most of those phone calls last about 90 seconds because you talk to the person, they patch you through, you leave a message, that's it. So you go, okay, if you did 20 phone calls a day, 20 emails a day, you can get those 2 things done in probably like 3 hours. And you could do that every day with consistency. That's gonna really get you moving. That's what I would do.
Okay, great.
Love it.
All right.
Love it. All right. Any other questions that we have here? Any other questions on this? Paul?
I think when you talk about marketing or you talk about sales, the most important thing is don't overwhelm yourself. You can go into this rabbit hole of this complex situation, and at that point, you're just like, I don't want to do anything. So to your point, Jake, of just picking one and just going after that one, I think is a great strategy, because if you just try to do everything with the fire hose, then you just don't do anything. So I think it's really cool that you said to pick one and just focus in on that one, and that one will give you that momentum to do other ones.
Yes. So, Paul, here's something really interesting. When I was talking to EJ there saying 20 emails, 20 phone calls a day, there might be some of you who go, that's it. And then there might be others who go, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. Here's the thing. I know EJ's situation and he's all in with this right now. So I'm saying, great, you got to spend hours a day on this. Someone else, the truth is there's a balance between what's the most that you can do without being overwhelmed. Because the moment you cross that level of overwhelm, it's not helping you because you're not going to do it with consistency. But if you're doing too little, well, you want to get more as well. So you got to look at this and say, what's the number? And for all of you, I don't care if it's 5 a day or if it's more than that a day. I don't care what number it is. What I want you to do is to find a number that you can have. If you're doing reach out as your goal, do something that you can be consistent with. But going back to what Paul said, we don't want you to be overwhelmed. We want this to be fun. That's why I call it a high five. Call it a high five to make it fun. I want you to choose one of these, just one. And I know a lot of you said, well, I'm going to do this and that. I don't know if you realize this. This and that is 2. I said 1. So I want you to focus on 1. So you might use some of these others to get the thing that you're doing, but I want you to focus on 1 as the primary outcome. Focus on 1 as the primary outcome, and the thought experiment that I want you to do over the next 30 days is if you say, well, I'm going to do magnetic marketing. Instead of now going, hey, I did this thing, now I check it off the list. I want you to start thinking, well, what else could I do to attract people? What else could I do to bring people? Or, okay, I'm going to do networking. Great, I'm going to go to networking events. Well, what other events could I go to? How can I network online even when I'm not at an event? How can I network in this way? How can I follow up with people that I did? How can I do those kinds of things? Or referrals. Great, I'm going to reach out to everyone that I know and ask them for referrals and see what's going on with them and see what's going on. I might have to reach out, but the referrals is the main goal. So let's look at it that way. What is the one that we're doing? Okay, Travia, let's hear your comment.
Yeah, it's more of a question real quick. What would be your biggest advice on using my podcast for magnetic marketing?
Yeah. Great question. So if I were you, you're using your podcast. How can you use your podcast for magnetic marketing? Number 1 is try to make the podcast worth listening to. And I know you're already doing that, but you want to make sure that something that is worth listening to. So quality programming, highly, highly important. The second thing is if you want to get organic marketing, well, one of the ways that you can make it magnetic is by using leverage, by getting people who already have a following of some kind and asking them to be on the show, and then providing them with marketing materials, photos, flyers, copy, all those kind of things to be able to easily share your podcast. So you might say, man, I'm doing the podcast, no one's sharing it. They might not be sharing it because you didn't tell them exactly what to do. So if you say, hey, I'd love to have you share it, here's a write-up for Facebook. Here's a write-up. Here's an image for Instagram. Here is a write-up for an email. You can change it in any way that you want, but here it is. Here's the stuff for you to do. Paul, you look like you have a comment. Did you have a comment for Travia? Or were you just holding your hand like you were raising your hand? Paul, were you raising your hand?
Oh, are you talking to me? Oh, I was not. No, I apologize.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I thought that you were for a second.
Okay.
But that's what I would do to use a podcast to get more of the right people to listen to you. So use the people that you interview as a leverage activity to bring people to you, to magnetically bring people to you. So strategically choose people. And here's what's interesting. If you choose people, I mean, it's like a long shot, but if you're choosing like people who are actually kind of famous, unless they're super famous, it really doesn't help you that much. And the reason why is because they're not going to share it. They're not going to talk about it. And unless they're the kind of person that's like a super famous person, their name's on it, boom, it gets tons of people. Unless they're that level, if they don't share it, it's not really going to help you that much. So what you're looking for is people who are a few steps above you. because they actually have some benefit of sharing it. They want to share because they're like, man, this is great. Someone's interviewing me. Someone wants to hear my thoughts. So I want to share it. So what you're looking for is people who have some level of following that's either at the same level as you or a few levels above you. And then you ask them to share that content. And when they share that content, every time you do an episode, you end up getting 5 new people, 10 new people. You just start collecting people as you go. And what's cool is getting guests on your podcast that have a following is not hard or complicated if you have a following. If you don't have a following, they're like, why am I doing this? I'm doing you a favor. You're not doing me a favor, I'm doing you a favor. So for you to start getting bigger guests that are going to give you more leverage, the question is, how can you start interviewing people that will give you few more people, few more people, few more people, get them to help you to grow, and then you can get bigger and bigger guests. So that's what I would do. By the way, and it doesn't even have to be someone famous. One of my clients, Nathan, he's in the real estate marketing space. When he was first starting, a real estate coaching space, when he was first starting in real estate coaching, he was his ideal clients were actually the brokers, not the agents. And so with the brokers, he said, you know what? I'm just going to interview brokers because I know they all know each other, and they're going to share it on LinkedIn. They're going to do that. And so he started this podcast called the Broker to Broker Podcast. He had no intention of being a famous podcaster. He wanted just to grow his network with the right people. So instead, like, think about this, reaching out to brokers. If he said, hey, you're a broker, I hope that you can become a client, and I hope that you reach out and tell your friends about me. Get lost. I have no interest in you. But instead, he said, hey, Mr. Broker, I just found you on a list of the top 500 brokerages in the country. I have a podcast called the Broker to Broker Podcast. I would love to share your wisdom about what you did. And they go, okay, cool. That strokes their ego, makes them feel good. They're excited about it. So then he interviews those people. Now he has a real conversation with them to be able to talk about what working with their brokerage would look like. But also on top of that, he now shares the podcast on his LinkedIn, in which other people who also know him now see that as well. And he ends up growing and growing and growing. And then they're finding more people to interview and more people to listen by using that podcast. So a podcast can be a really great way to do this. Really, really great way to do this. There's a lot of great opportunity there when it comes to leverage. I want to share one more thought with leverage. This is an idea going around in my head, and I'm just sharing it because maybe it could be useful for you. So one thing that at some point I want to do, and I don't know exactly when this is going to be, is create a leadership curriculum program for high school student leaders. That was a world I was in for a long time. I loved being in that world, but me going and speaking at all those events just isn't conducive with my schedule. The pay is not the level that I necessarily am at now today. And so I want to start this program for these leadership events. So here's the idea that I have to market it. My idea to market it is there's all these different leadership organizations. There's 12 of them that are connected to the Department of Education. This is CTSO, or they're called CTSOs. This is FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, FFA, Future Farmers of America. There's all these different organizations, plus there's National Student Council. So it ends up being 13 different organizations that are nationwide organizations. All of them have a national advisor that's an adult. All of them also have state advisors that are adults. So you had 50, 51 times 13. So we're looking at 600 and something different people that we're looking at. All of these people are extremely influential in that world. Instead of me going out trying to market this program, I'm going to start a student leadership podcast whenever I do this. I don't know when this is going to be, but this is the plan. Start a student leadership podcast where I'm interviewing those leaders about their experience in student leadership. They're not going to just go share my content with people. But if they did a great interview, they can share with one email every single person that's involved in that in the state, or every single person that's involved in that in the country. So one email can get out to thousands of people by just making that one individual individual interview. So you see this as a magnetic approach. I'm reaching out using a magnetic approach to really get leverage for mass amounts of referrals. So they're all together. Maybe that idea can spark something for you because you can do similar types of things. So last comment on this, and then we'll wrap up. I want you to choose one of these, and then I want you to focus on that for the next 30 days. And with the one that you choose, I do not want you to say next week, yeah, I chose this one, I did it. Mission complete. That's not what we're looking at. By the way, I know that Paul is going to say that as his first thing just because he's sarcastic. But what I want you to do is go, okay, cool, I did that. What else could I do? This is a thought experiment where you can start expanding your thinking and finding more ways to share your message in front of more people. Because remember, that's what marketing is about. How can I share my mission with the world? And these are just 5 ways that we can do that, and we can do it without spending money on advertising. All right, everyone, I got to run. You have a wonderful rest of your week, and go out there and do something good. Bye, everyone.